Welcome back to Decades of Dominance. We're covering our, uh, our part two, rounds 5 through 8 of our best ball draft today. You can catch part one in this video playlist. To start off with round 5, we had AJ Green, then Kyler Murray, DK Metcalf, Cortland Sutton, Melvin Gordon. Sean took Le'Veon Bell at 6. Your thoughts on those picks?
I think AJ Green is a huge reach at that point. We don't know what he's going to be after the injury, and even before the injury, he wasn't the wide receiver one in Cincinnati anymore. Kyler Murray is probably the first quarterback. Wasn't a huge reach, being the last of that second tier of quarterbacks.
I like that pick.
Cortland Sutton is an absolute stud who would have been very tempting to me, even though I wanted to get my third running back in this round. He would have been very tempted to take as a third receiver had he still been on the board. My pick of Le'Veon Bell, it's not exciting. He was very average at best last year, but he was the number one player in fantasy football not too long ago, and I'm hoping the Jets offense can bounce back with some of the additions that they made in the draft and free agency. And I'm hoping Le'Veon Bell can bounce back to at least some of that form of old, where he's catching passes and scoring touchdowns and really the focal point of that offense.
We had I agree with your pick. To this point, I love the Cortland Sutton pick. I thought Melvin Gordon was a good pick. I would have taken either of those two guys before DK Metcalf or AJ Green. DK Metcalf is going to be good, but I still would have taken Cortland Sutton before either one of those two. Melvin Gordon is going to be a good pick. I like your pick of Le'Veon Bell for all the reasons you gave. The next pick was Golden Tate. I don't like this pick. I don't think Golden Tate will be the number one wide receiver for the Giants. I don't even think he'll be the number 2 wide receiver for the Giants. Then T.Y. Hilton went at the 8th spot. I do like this pick. I took Raheem Mostert at the 9th spot. I think he is going to be the lead back in the San Francisco backfield, which scores a lot of points. And I wanted to have another solid option at running back should one of my top 2 guys be on bye or have a bad week. Sean?
I agree that Tate was a huge reach at that point. T.Y. Hilton is getting older. Your pick of Mostert is definitely not the way I would have gone. I do like a couple running backs that were still on the board, significantly more than Mostert, namely Connor and Chris Carson from Seattle. But the San Francisco backfield does score a lot of points. And if most of them go to Mostert, then he'll be well worth this pick. The 2 quarterbacks that went at the end of the round, Rodgers and Wentz, kind of round out the tier that started with Josh Allen a little while ago. And with Aaron Rodgers, I think he's going to be playing with a huge chip on his shoulder, which I would probably end up taking him over Josh Allen even in these drafts, just because I can't wait to see what he does playing with that huge chip. I also really love the Chark pick at the end of the round. I think that's good value.
I'll agree with you there. I like DJ Chark better than some of the other wide receivers taken sooner. Certainly Tate. I mean, Chark doesn't have the big injury history that AJ Green has, and he just came out of a monster year. So I like the pick. Let's move on to round 6. At the first spot in round 6, we had Devontae Parker, then Matt Ryan, Devin Singletary, and with the 4th pick, I wanted to make sure that I had solid tight end production week in and week out, so I took Darren Waller.
Yeah, I was very surprised when I saw you make that pick in the draft. I kind of understand your point of how you can't. It's hard to make sure that you are going to get solid tight end production week in, week out without being able to make free agent acquisitions and stuff. But again, I just even with that in mind, I think the second tight end on your team before a second wide receiver and no quarterback, we'll see if that strategy pays off for you. Although Waller isn't the tight end I would have gone with. I would have gone with Ingram over
Sure.
Waller.
And we see some of your picks come up shortly after. James Conner goes at the 5th spot. I do
Yeah,
like James Conner if he's healthy, but again, it's a best ball league, and the if he's healthy part comes in, big into play. He's also coming up on a contract, and Pittsburgh has a lot of running backs in that backfield, just as more, I think, now than even San Francisco. So I just wasn't feeling confident about him in a league that I couldn't replace him if he gets hurt. Evan Ingram's another guy who's had some injury history. So I went with Waller, hoping for a little more consistent play because Ertz also has some injury history. So I didn't want to take two tight ends with injury history there. But Evan Ingram is a great pick at 606. And then with the 7th pick in the 6th round, you took Hunter Henry.
yeah, it absolutely broke my heart when Evan Ingram went one pick before mine. In hindsight, I probably should have taken him in the 5th round and gotten my third running back here in the 6th. But again, hindsight's 2020. Hunter Henry was the next tight end on my list, making yet another Charger on this team for me. Maybe I'm the one who's wrong, and I should be downgrading Chargers more because of the loss of Rivers, a quarterback, but I'm just not, and it's really starting to show on this best ball team of mine. I think Hunter Henry is supremely talented, and he's going to be good no matter who his quarterback is. And inexperienced quarterbacks tend to lean on their tight ends, so
Good pick.
hopefully I can get similar production out of Henry. Go ahead.
With the 8th spot, Deebo Samuel's taken. This draft occurred before he broke his arm. Then David Johnson. Then at the 9th pick, David Montgomery went at 6'10". Terry McLaurin went at 6'11", and Chris Carson finally at 6'12". I really do like Chris Carson at that spot. David Johnson could be a steal if he returns to a form from a few years ago in the same way that your Le'Veon Bell pick could be a steal. David Montgomery really isn't as bad as his year was last year. Chicago had terrible quarterback play, so teams loaded the box on David Montgomery. So we should be able to have an idea of what he can really do if Chicago is even able to improve a little bit in their passing game. Your
Yeah,
thoughts on
Montgomery's
that?
got talent, but as long as he's sharing that backfield with Tariq Cohen, his upside remains very limited. So to take him above Chris Carson was a huge mistake. Chris Carson, I think, is definitely one of the biggest steals of this round and this entire draft at 6'12". I'm actually surprised you didn't go with Terry McLaurin with your pick in this round.
I do like him. Looking at round 7, we had Tyler Boyd taken first. I love this pick in round 7. Then Julian Edelman, another big value pick here. Michael Gallup with the 3rd pick. Depending on how things play out, he could be the wide receiver 3 in Dallas. So I don't know if this was a little bit of a reach or not, but he definitely has talent. Then Mark Ingram went with the 4th pick in the 7th round. Jared Cook and went with the 5th pick. And at the 6th pick in the 7th round, you took Jarvis Landry.
Yeah, I mentioned Landry earlier in the first broadcast when we were talking about Beckham and how it reminds me of the situation with my Raiders a few years ago where Cooper was the big name and going much higher in drafts, but he was almost always outscored by Crabtree. The same thing is true in Cleveland with Beckham and Landry, and I actually don't know that that's going to change. I don't know that I would necessarily take Landry ahead of Beckham, but I would certainly prefer the later value of getting Landry where he's going rather than having to reach for the name in Beckham where he's going.
Sure. And it's an interesting pick here in that you have a guy like Mike Evans. So when Mike Evans scores 40 points, if you have 3 wide receivers who dominate, Jarvis Landry might be on your bench that week. But if your wide receivers have a bad week for Jarvis Landry, he has a very high floor. So you're going to get points from Jarvis Landry. You're going to get catches from Jarvis Landry. So I like the pick. Rashad Perryman could be talented for the Jets this year. I have other wide receivers on my board higher than I would have taken Perryman at the seventh pick in the seventh round. Kareem Hunt at the eighth pick in the seventh round, I think is a great pick. I would have considered him myself, but I needed wide receivers. So going down the route of trying to take a wide receiver with boom or bust potential to fill out a deep wide receiving core, I took Brandon Cooks for Houston, thinking that there's a chance he could be the wide receiver one in Houston. There's a pretty good chance he's going to have some big games, maybe some multi-touchdown games, or at least get me those. He may disappear some weeks, but other weeks he may win me the week.
Yeah, I like Cooks in this format. The whole boomer bust thing makes a lot of sense. Is he the number one receiver in Houston, or will it be the
Fuller.
other guy? Yeah, Will Fuller. But Fuller has that industry, and Cook is used to going to a new team. I cannot figure out what it is with this guy that he keeps going from team to team to team. But he's not a bad player. The Perryman pick was a huge, huge reach in my opinion. He's Jameson Crowder's the number one receiver on the Jets. Don't let anybody tell you different, especially in PPR. Um, Perryman is going to have a hard time keeping Denzel Mims
Yep.
from taking his spot as the second wide receiver on that team.
Yep. I hear you. Do you like the Kareem Hunt pick at the eighth spot?
Value wise, probably. I just I don't like Kareem Hunt as a person.
Well, yeah,
I don't like I don't like what he did. So
understandable. At the 10th pick in the seventh round, Drew Brees could be good quarterback value there. He definitely does have big weeks. He still scores rushing touchdowns. James White at the 11th pick. New England's going to throw the ball to a running back. It's probably going to be James White. So this is probably a Tariq Cohen type pick at this spot. Then John Brown at the last pick in the seventh round. John Brown had a monster year last year, but he's going to be competing with Diggs for targets, so I don't know if that's going to be repeatable. Any final thoughts on round 7?
yeah, I dislike both of those picks. I think more than you do. I think that White's value is very tied to Tom Brady. Maybe Stidham will use him as much in the dump off passes. I mean, I still like James White. I love his receiving ability. That gives running backs a low floor, but there's definitely better options that were still on the board.
Some of the
And
rookie.
John Brown, same thing. He's definitely second fiddle at best now that they brought in Diggs.
So in round 8, we see Sterling Shepard go off the board as the first pick, then Damian Williams and Christian Kirk. I do like the Sterling Shepard pick. I think he is probably the wide receiver one for New York, and being that they're pretty evenly distributed wide receiving group, he's not going to get a ton of double coverage. He's a great possession receiver. He's not going to catch a lot of touchdowns, though, so he'll be a little bit in that Jarvis Landry vein, not as good as Jarvis Landry, but where he catches a decent number of passes and gets you a decent floor each week. I took Daniel Jones as my quarterback with the 4th pick in the 8th round. I thought that he was still the best quarterback available at this point. He has a potential because of the number of targets that he's got and the improved offensive line to score some more points this year. And he has had some big games. So I took him with the 4th pick in the 8th round.
I like the Daniel Jones pick, and he's got the most talented running back in the league to back him up there in the Jets. All 3 of his receivers, 2 of them have already been drafted. I think one's going to get drafted shortly here. So, and Ingram, as I mentioned, is a tight end I love. Although I would have gone with the guy that went a couple picks later. I would have gone with Brady over both Breeze and Daniel Jones, but they're all kind of in that same tier for me.
Sure. At the fifth pick in the eighth round, we had Jamison Crowder going. We talked about him a little bit earlier. I think that's another pick that's going to be like a Sterling Shepard, not a ton of touchdowns, but a lot of possession. Um, Certainly going to get you points each week. Then Tom Brady went, and it's really a question of whether you think Tom Brady's got anything left in his arm. I saw a big drop off last year, so that sort of scared me away. That's another reason why I was a little bit lower on Tampa Bay's wide receivers. We'll see if Tom brings it or not. I thought he had lost some arm strength, so we'll see if he's got anything left. I love your pick um, with the seventh pick in the eighth round, Cam Akers.
Yeah, I was again very much similar to Evan Ingram a couple rounds ago. I was absolutely heartbroken that the guy that I had targeted had gone one pick before. I was waiting for Tom Brady to fall one more spot to me, and I'd have felt confident in him as my QB1. Without any suitable after him, there wasn't another quarter. The next quarterback on my list wasn't good enough to take in that spot. So I went a different direction. I went with my fourth running back because that position is going to dry up quickly. And I went with Cam Akers because he's got less competition for carries than any of the other rookie running backs, and rookie running backs tend to do well. Devery Henderson is still there, but he was so terrible last year. I know they also like Malcolm Brown, but if they liked Henderson and they liked Brown, they wouldn't have spent such a high pick on Akers. So I think Akers is going to be the man there.
Right, and even if Akers was the pass catching back, you're still potentially getting some good points out of him. But I think you potentially have the RB1 on the Rams in the eighth round, so that's a tremendous pick. Right after you took Cam Akers, Justin Jefferson went. Should be the wide receiver too in for the Vikings. So a decent grab here. A very very talented rookie. Austin Hooper, who's moved to Cleveland, is taken with the ninth pick in the eighth round. He's going to be competing for targets with David Njoku and obviously Odell Beckham and Landry. But I think Hooper will carve out his niche there and get some points. Rob Gronkowski with the 10th pick in the eighth round. If Brady still has it, Gronkowski will probably be a steal at this spot. Then Noah Fant, going for the rookie upside on tight ends. He could take a huge leap forward this year. And finally, Tyler Higbee with the final pick in the eighth round. Another tight end who really came on strong at the end of last year, and he just got a new contract. He's been catching a lot of passes for the Rams. So big run on tight ends at the end of round 8. Final thoughts?
Yeah, I like the Higbee pick, and I absolutely love the Gronkowski pick. In hindsight, probably should have gone that direction instead of Akers after Brady went off the board. Get that second strong tight end like you did a couple rounds earlier, but I just didn't. I think Fant did well as a rookie, but they drafted Drew Lock's favorite target in college, Albert OK something. They call him Albert OK. Uh, I think that's going to cut into Fant's production as well as the two rookie receivers that they picked. So I think Fant's being overdrafted in most leagues.
Could be, right. Denver certainly does have a lot more targets this year, so it could be a year where Locke steps up his production. Well, that covers rounds 5 through 8. Stay tuned, and we'll bring you the next 3 parts to this series and complete our best ball draft. We'll see you next time.